Welcome to the Modern Insurance Agents Podcast. Today, we're going to talk about how to generate leads without getting fined or shut down. Welcome to the Modern Insurance Agent Podcast.
We're your hosts, David and Elle Denning.
What happens when a millennial couple dives headfirst into the insurance world, scales $1 million remote business, and decides to share the journey with the world?
You get the Modern Insurance Agent.
Here, we reveal the messy, magical, and sometimes hilarious realities of building a business and a life you love.
From traveling the globe to building remote teams. Yes, even working remotely on top of a mountain in the Philippines. We're sharing insights, strategies, and plenty of laughs to help agents and entrepreneurs succeed.
Because let's face it, success isn't just about hitting numbers.
It's about designing a life that works for you.
So let's dive in and build something extraordinary together.
Compliance is a hot topic right now, especially with the changes that have actually not gone into effect with the FCC. At the time of recording this, which is beginning of 2025, we are seeing some things and a lot of conversation in the insurance space. So this entire episode is going to be dedicated to make sure that you are working your leads and opt-ins compliantly. David, I kind of hate starting out this way, but I feel like this is important to know how much this can affect your business, because we see this actually put people out of business. So why should agents and business owners pay attention, take some notes during this podcast?
Absolutely. And I promise why this is the most fun topic out there. It is super important to your business and always to stay up to date, because we'd like to keep our businesses, right? No one likes getting fined, and no one likes having to shut down their business. And unfortunately, that can be the reality of if we don't run our business the right way, especially in an industry like insurance that is regulated, or just really in any thing that involves communication like telephone, text, email, and that's all the stuff we'll talk about. So this way you can know exactly what you need to do. You can relax and you can focus on really growing and scaling your business without having to worry about doing it the wrong way and getting in trouble. So that's what we're going to talk about a little bit. What does that look like if something happens, right? And you may even have the best intentions, but that's why you got to set yourself up that you don't run into this or put yourself at risk. It's just not worth it. Even because something seem like, it's probably low risk that something will happen. In reality, if something does, it's just really not worth the results in the day. So I can think of an example of Michael, agent I knew that did amazing in the industry. He had built a really successful business, but one of the things he had done and he thought he was safer with was he used to cold call businesses, right? And he'd cold call and it actually lead into really cool opportunities for life insurance, but he was cold calling them and didn't have any sort of permission. And he thought, it's a business number. I'm fine doing that. Well, until he called someone who was actually an attorney, who it was actually their personal cell on the DNC that they were using for the business. And so it was a violation, ended up suing him, and ended up being over a 6-figure settlement that he didn't have the cash on hand to settle. Rough. So he just had to shut down his business and drop out of the industry. Over a successful business, he spent time, energy, and money building that was gone in an instant. So not to say this to scare you or anything, but it is something to be aware of, because we want to set ourselves up for long lasting, sustainable business and something that we don't have to worry about these things because we're taking the steps to make sure we're doing it compliantly.
Yeah. And not only agents and business owners like this, but also we've heard about lawsuits to carriers. For example, people hiring kind of shady lead vendors, or they didn't have the proper opt-in. And again, similar situation. And I think what's important to realize with this is that there are people that are just waiting to get these calls to sue you. And this isn't just for insurance agents. This is any business owner needs to understand these rules. And it's a little bit sad, but there's people out there that are making their money off of suing business owners and finding that they're not following these rules and catching them in this. So that's why we want you to have this information. And like David said, not something meant to scare you, but definitely something to know what the rules are and to stay up to date with. With that being said, this will be our little legal disclaimer. We are not lawyers.
You're not a lawyer? Just found out my wife isn't a lawyer. Go figure.
So we have done research on our side. We run marketing on our side. But at the end of the day, do your own research. We are not liable for any information that you take and implement inside of your business. Don't come back and sue us, okay? So,
and in reality, you shouldn't be getting any legal advice from a podcast in the first place, guys. Like, not what we're focused on. My dad's an attorney. I don't know if that counts, but definitely not.
But we
on
are
this.
not.
So,
we did not go to law school.
But. And that's the thing. We're gonna make this fun, entertaining, a really good time too. But like, just even you don't want to set yourself up to where even if you're doing things right, that you're opening yourself up to where you are potentially having a lawsuit come against you or something like that, because the amount of money you spend on that may be 10 times the amount of what the actual even fine could be. It's just not worth the time or the money. If anybody who has ever dealt with lawyers or lawsuits or anything can tell you it's just better to stay away from all of it. Even if you believe that you're right, just going through it's going to cost you so much time and money. And that's what Elle brought up with some of the carriers. They spend $500,000 plus just on a basic one case incident
to settle something.
And the fine may be like $10,000, but in the attorney fees, it cost them so much to go through all of that. So it's better put the stuff in place, protect yourself, know exactly how to run stuff so you can build a business without having to worry about something happening to it. So.
And I'll go ahead and say we've actually put a cheat sheet together for you to make everything that we're going to talk about even easier. So if you want to go to jumpstartgonow.com/podcast, we'll have all of the show notes plus a very handy dandy cheat sheet that you can download that'll simplify everything that we're going to go through today.
And maybe there's a video of me dancing, maybe not. You won't know till you go check it out. So just saying.
Again, that's jumpstartgonow.com/podcast. Okay, so we already touched on the fines, and this is super important. So anywhere from $500 to $1,500 per violation. So that means like if you're texting people and you're auto texting them and you don't have the proper opt-in, you don't have the proper consent, that's per violation. That is per every single text message that you send. And if you're sending this to a list of thousands of people, you're sending, 10, 20 text messages, those fines can really rack up. That's why
hope you got deep pockets.
Yeah, that's why this, 6-figure lawsuit that David just mentioned can be a very true reality for an agent, even if you're just getting started. So let's talk about what is compliant lead generation.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we want to be able to acquire the opportunities, like whether it's, our leads, our prospecting. We want to be able to do that in a way that we're following the rules, we're following compliance so that we don't have to worry about getting hit with a DNC fine or anything on that. So that's what we want to talk about is how do I get express permission to do this? How do I make sure I can prove that I have this permission and I'm doing this compliantly? Because that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. I can say I had permission, but I don't have a way to prove that. Then in reality, I didn't, right? So it's kind of like popping into someone's house while they're not home and be like, the owners told me I could be here. Listen, show me some proof. When the cops show up, they're not just going to listen to my word, right? And so same thing here. I got to be able to show that, right? And so, Elle, can you talk a little bit how the insurance industry in particular, let's be honest, the industry that's worked a lot of leads, talk about how that kind of plays into on this industry in particular.
Yeah. So, the insurance business is primarily, any business is a lead working business, but insurance specifically relies on people that are asking for more information, either on a quote. They want to know how much a life insurance policy would be for them, how maybe they're thinking about changing their homeowner's insurance or an auto policy. So, we're actually just on a Zoom call with a marketer who has run marketing across all different types of industries, from Botox and med spas to investment companies, and insurance has definitely been an organization that he's run marketing for. And he was talking about that insurance marketing getting on the top of Google, if you're paying for search terms, it is some of the most expensive search terms that you can pay for. There is a lot of money that's invested into insurance lead generation, no matter what the line of insurance is. So a lot of leads are worked in this business, whether you're new inside of the insurance business or have been here from some time. You likely have either thought about or about what it's like to purchase leads and work those leads. So when a lead lands into your system, what we are talking about here is that you need to get that permission. If you're generating the lead, you have to have that permission from the person that's opted in, that you can text them, that you can call them. And if you don't have that proper permission, then this is where these lawsuits and these fines can come into play. And there's different rules here, and we're going to talk about the different rules and specifically what it means to have that express written permission. So the TCPA, we're going to start getting a little technical here, so hang on with us. But the TCPA opt-in is specifically what we're talking about, and that is the Telephone Consumer Protection Act is what that stands for. And what it means to have that written permission is that little checkbox. You, I'm sure, have checked this box before, whether maybe it wasn't for insurance, maybe it was, a beauty product or a subscription service that you were getting information about or opting in for. But you have to give that permission. You have to have that permission that says that the business can reach out to the consumer, especially if you are using automated text message and phone calls. This is specifically what the TCPA is covering. Very, very important. So if you are sending automated text messages, you need to have that express written permission that you can send a text message to them that is specific to marketing materials. It can't be buried. It has to be conspicuous. They have to be able to see it, know what they're opting into. This also applies if you're using a power dialer or any type of voicemail drops, anything like that that has to do with the phone. That's what the TCPA is going to cover. David, anything that you want to add specifically, or maybe some questions that you hear from agents about this?
I mean, I think the first thing I want to add is even seeing why these things are in place from our own perspective. Like, how many of you have gotten a call out of the blue or been cold called or gotten hit up with 1,000,001 things on the phone of things that you never even reached out about or can't remember reaching out about? And that's really why this is put in place, supposedly to help cut down on this and to enforce this, right? And so that's the same thing, right? Like, we don't want to be that person on the other side of the phone that is reaching out to people that never gave us permission or consent to reach out to them. And if they bring that up, like we would if they were calling us, right? We want to be able to, hey, here's where you did that, right? And be like, oh yeah, I did do that. I did want to know about that, right? So that's what it's coming down to. Now, common questions I get is like, how do I prove that I have that permission? What does that look like as far as, having something I can show if someone does claim that I didn't have permission to reach out and contact them? What questions should I ask vendors as far as making sure that I'm covering my butt and making sure that they actually are generating leads compliantly that I'm using What does that look like if I'm running my own like Facebook ads, for example, doing that, right? And so, I mean, the common questions I get is, sometimes even almost scary, because some agents are like, wait, there's rules to that? I can't just call people, or that there's only certain times a day I can call them, or things like that.
Yeah.
And so, these things exist. I mean, personally, we don't have to think about it a lot, because I can pick up my phone, call anybody to say hi or check in on them. But when it comes to doing this as a business, you have to pay attention to these. So
yeah, absolutely. And so you brought up some really good questions there. So lead vendors. Okay. So a lot of insurance agents, they purchase their leads from vendors. What do they need to cover their butts to make sure that they're working those leads, and that they're also not working with a shady vendor? Because let's be honest, I think we've all had those experiences with the shady lead vendors.
Yeah, if they refuse to answer your questions, they say, "Oh no, everything's all good," but they refuse to go in detail. If they don't know what TCPA means, these are the things that I probably going to run a million miles an hour in the opposite direction. So, these are things that you should really be doing your due diligence. Like, if you're using outside vendors, then you should know how to interview, how to ask these questions, and how to really define that these are compliant. And not just because others are using them, right? Just because other agents are doing it doesn't mean it's compliant.
That's such a good
If they
point.
jump off a bridge, you jump off the bridge too. At least that's what my parents always told me, right? And so same thing here. Like, just because other people are doing it, you don't want to
gotten caught.
That's haven't gotten caught.
Yes.
Like, doesn't mean that I want to throw myself in the hat of when they are caught, that I'm also part of this lawsuit or anything there. So, and also one thing I do want to highlight, a lot of you guys work for maybe an IMO or an FMO or company or something there. Just because it's coming from your company and stuff as well, doesn't mean that, hey, I'm perfectly good and I could never get in trouble, right? I want to make sure, even if it's coming from the company, I'll make sure that it's compliant and they're keeping up with this as well. That's something they should have a compliance department or people that are in charge of that, making sure that they're doing it. It's worth asking the question. It's worth learning this so you can protect your butt. Because at the end of the day, just because I work for an IMO and they hand me a lead doesn't mean that if a suit happens that they're not just going to leave me on the hook for it, right? Like, I don't really know too many IMOs. They're just going to hop in and like, listen, we'll take one for the team here and pay all this out.
Not unless whoever is doing the suing is going after the IMO.
But that, the agent's still caught in the crossfire,
of
right?
Course.
So at the end of the day, cover your butt, guys. Like, and honestly, it's not hard. It's not something that's, oh, this is going to take so much time and money and energy away from my business. It really is not. So it's worth doing this. So once again, I build up something that's not taken away from me. So
I like how you said it's not hard. There's all of this legal language around it that makes it feel very, very difficult to navigate, but it really is simple. You just need to have proof that people have given you permission to contact them, and then just double check the methods in which they've said that you can contact them through. And again, going back to the express written permission through TCPA, if you're planning on sending text automatically, if you're planning on doing any auto dialing, anything like that, it does need to specifically say automated text and phone calls in the opt-in. So ideally, if you're working with a vendor, they should be able to show you what the person has opted in and the type of communication that they've opted in to receive from you. Also, part of that TCPA opt-in, it does need to clearly say how they opt out. So with TCPA, basically it doesn't expire their consent to contact you because they've given that express written permission. And so you can continue sending them those text messages, dialing them through an auto dialer. I think there is no hard and fast rule on this, but a good rule of thumb, though, is about 6 months. Like that permission doesn't technically expire, but best practices from what we've seen say around 6 months. So after you do receive that express written permission, you can continue texting them, doing the auto dialer for up to 6 months. But it would be hard. Again, not a lawyer. Don't bring this into, but I think it would be hard if you did go beyond 6 months, that you're not on the hook for a lawsuit there, as long as, again, you're basically sticking to how they have said they want to receive communication from you. So if you just want to like keep it really simple, just look and see how people have opted in to receive communication, and then honor what they have said. And then if they say stop or unsubscribe, or you keep calling them and they say remove me from your list, you do have to honor that. Because if you keep calling them or you keep texting them and they've said, no, I don't want to be contacted from your organization anymore, now you're starting to move into that fine territory and you're not honoring their wishes. So like David said, like at the end of the day, this is ultimately for the consumer to have the best experience possible, where they can control the communication that they want to receive from your organization.
And, as an agent, the worst response or answer you can have from someone is a maybe or no response, right? I'd rather have a yes or a no. And so if someone is opting out saying stop, no, remove me from your list, then that's great. Cool. I'll take them off, right? Now I can focus my time and energy more to people that, do want my help, that I can get in contact with. Hopefully you're not at the point where I only got this one lead and they said no. Well, I guess I'll just keep calling them until they say yes, right? Like don't put yourself in that spot, right? And so that's fine. I want to respect those wishes, and once again, focus my time efficiently to people that do want my help and that I can help, versus wasting time chasing someone down that already doesn't want to talk to me. Good luck turning that around into a sale. That's, and once again, you're not doing it compliantly either, right? So once again, another reason that we like really inbound methods and things like that, because they're coming to us, they're reaching out to us, and we don't have to, quite worry about as much of that, because they're immediately giving their expressive consent by reaching out to us, referrals, that sort of stuff. But a lot of this industry is outbound, which is what a lot of this applies to. And so I want to make sure, if I'm including outbound as part of my strategies and my marketing, then I want to make sure doing that compliantly there. So how does the DNC, which for everybody here should know what that is, probably your personal phone number is on it or ever stands for, but the do not call the registry. So DNC, do not call, and then registry, right? So can you still call people if they're on the DNC with the proper consent, Elle?
Yes. So if somebody has they've given you that express permission to reach out to them, then that basically gives you that permission to reach out, even if they are on the do not call list or registered with the DNC. But again, you do need to keep your own internal DNC. So if they ask to be removed from your list, that you as a business owner are keeping track of that. You have a way. This is where having a CRM and something that can also help you with marking people as a DNC in your system. If you're using any type of automated dialer software, text message software, anything like that, that you can easily mark people that have opted out. And even better yet, if it handles it for you. So if they reply back, stop, unsubscribe, remove, it automatically takes them out of any type of automated workflows, anything like that. Or, if you have a team of people that are doing dialing for you, like we have a team of appointment setters, that if they get somebody on the phone and they say, remove me from your list, there's a one-click button inside of our system for phone that they can say, okay, we aren't calling them anymore. And it makes it physically impossible for our appointment setters to continue dialing them, because they're marked as on our internal DNC. So keep that in mind too. No matter what, if somebody says that they want to be removed from your list, that you have to honor that and remove them from your list, whether that's email, text message, or phone calls.
Saves you money too. Like if I'm doing emails and texts to someone who doesn't want them, it is a potential client or customer, and said no, then it's also costing me money every time those go out too. So anytime I need somebody unsubscribe, says no, happily take them off, and hey, cool, it saves us money from continuing to send stuff to them, right? So I like that the systems are getting smarter with these things and protections put in place. We're big fans of like go high level, and like Elle said, you know, someone responds stop or no, it'll immediately put it on the DNC, put them on our internal DNC with them, so that another team member of ours doesn't come across them and reach out to them when they've already said no, right? So, you know, once again, that's why technology can cause problems, but it also can solve problems if you're using it right.
Yeah.
So,
And this internal DNC list needs to be honored for up to 5 years. So if somebody's opted out, then you need to make sure that that record is stored and that you are honoring that for up to 5 years.
But they can also re-opt in, right? If they change their mind
Correct.
and reach out to us, then
yeah.
they can
So
start.
like in a text message, you guys have probably seen this before. It's like there's a carrier from the telephone carrier's typical standard message. If you respond stop, to be removed from marketing messages. And when you do that, it's a standard message that'll say like, oh, if you want to re-opt in, reply back start. So they can always like, you know, open that line for communication again by responding start, or, you know, if they again go through filling out a form and then they give you that express written consent again, now you have that consent to contact them in the ways that they said that they wanted to be contacted.
Love it. You guys having fun yet? You're learning how to be compliant. So I bet it sounds more fun as you're like, you're learning how not to take money, have money taken away from you, and, and have your
how
business,
not to
right?
be sued.
So,
not
I know.
To be fined.
I promise these podcast episodes we'll have a lot more fun things to talk about, but we wanted to make sure this is very topical to right now. We're going to cover a little bit of the FCC and some of this stuff, so it's important to bring up so that we can talk about all the fun things with you having to worry about, hey, how do I do that compliantly? So.
And one thing that I do want to point out about the TCPA is that it's really meant for auto dialing and texting. And with the DNC, for example, you can cold call people if they are not on the DNC and if you are manually dialing them. So David mentioned earlier an agent that had a lot of success, like cold calling businesses. He just, I don't think, was scrubbing it against the DNC.
No, and I can't say he wasn't ever doing it, but he might have gotten lazy and just started, you know, hey, cool, I'm cool calling businesses. Because I mean, obviously you can pick up a phone and call a business, right? Like you can do that, but you know, he didn't realize, oh, that number I called, I didn't check to see if it was potentially a personal number on the DNC.
And it's so hard these days because a lot of business owners register their cell phone, like their personal cell phone, as a business number. So their personal cell phones, if that personal cell phone is put on the DNC, even if they're a business owner, you're still opening yourself up to a DNC violation, even if you're manually dialing and not doing the auto texting and auto dialing.
That's a good point. Yep.
So, and then also manual texting. So if you are manually texting people that are not on the DNC, that's also okay as well. Also, there are certain states that have their own DNCs as well. So there is a federal DNC, and then there are states like Florida and Texas. I can't remember all of them off of the top of my head, but there are a handful of states that have their own state registries as well. So definitely familiarize yourself with those particular states if you are doing cold calling. And that you're also checking the state registries in addition to the federal registry for the DNC.
Glad you brought up that point. That's something I didn't, until a while back, had no idea that the states had their own version. So I was scrubbing a list, and it was like, oh, would you also like to scrub it by the state for like Florida, since we're in Florida. And I was like, oh, there's a Florida do not call also, and they want to charge extra to scrub that one as well. But once again, if you're going to protect yourself, fully protect yourself, right? Make sure you're scrubbing both. And why Elle said that, oh, texting or calling manually to ones that are not on the DNC is okay, that are not on the DNC is okay. we're not saying it's a good use of time or likely to convert into sales, right? That's a whole separate thing, but just the fact you could do it compliantly. But yeah, is it the best use of your time?
And
Probably
again,
not.
manual here.
Yeah,
Like this is
again,
not, I mean, you cannot like, scrape a list from somewhere or just get data or aged leads and start loading this up into your CRM. Even if you do scrub it against the DNC and start blasting emails and, doing voicemail drops to people, like those are all violations, because in order to do anything automated, that's where the TCPA opt-in comes in. You have to have that express written permission that they're getting those automated text messages and voice drops from you.
And even if your CRM or dialer is only dialing one number at a time, because
it's automated.
It's odd because
it
it's
literally
automated.
Has to be manual dialing, like you're punching.
Exactly. It's literally got to be your phone, click, 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 click it, which, it takes so much time to even dial a number. Like, I'm bored by the time I dial a number. Maybe it's because I'm a millennial and I have a low attention span. I don't know, but like, I can't get through dialing a whole number. Just click and dial the person, right? So,
or any of this like AI stuff like that, as far as, the AI agents, that any of that, you have to have, that has to be part of the consent that they've given you under the TCPA.
Yeah, this all applies to using AI to call people and stuff like that, which I can only imagine what kind of legislation and stuff will be coming into play with that. It's still new, but yeah, I mean, I can't imagine just even on some of the cases of AI calling to pretend to be people to have that person pay the money. Like, they're going to crack down hard, in my prediction, on AI calling and out to people. But once again, still follows the same compliance rules.
And one thing too, David asked me about when we were prepping for this was, he was like, well, what about the 90-day rule?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That, there's kind of like a 90-day sort of rule, especially like if you're working aged leads or aged data, that has to do with the DNC. And I think that's important for us to touch on here. So basically, anytime somebody makes an inquiry, like, they want to quote, for example, they want some more information, you have 90 days to continue to reach out to that person, even if they are on the DNC. And even if you don't have the fully compliant TCPA opt-in from them. Again, this is going to be manual, like DNC is that manual dialing. So you have a 90-day window. Like if they, let's say, filled out a form on your website, but you didn't have the TCPA language there, that they're opting into automated text, email, and phone calls from your organization, but they filled out an inquiry form. Well, you've got 90 days to manually dial and manually text them, even if they are registered on the DNC. And then after that 90 days, if they're on the DNC, you have to stop doing that because you don't have that express written consent. So the TCPA express written consent is the best consent that you can get that's going to cover your butt completely. So my theory on this is just make sure you have that proper language, let people know that you're going to be sending them automated text messages and phone calls, get them to opt in, and then you're fully covered under the TCPA. Or if you're purchasing leads from a vendor, make sure that they're showing proof that they have that specific TCPA opt-in language.
Love it.
All right, David. So one of the other questions that we get a lot is about email. Now, just in case we didn't confuse you enough with letters and jargon, everything that we've talked about up until this point does not include email. And there is a separate compliance that comes into play with email and handling spam emails. David, what is that called, and what do people need to know about email?
I don't know if I know what the acronym actually stands for, but it's called the Can Spam Act, which I thought originally was just terrible Canadian food. But apparently it applies to emails.
Any Canadian listeners? Oh my gosh!
Listen, I'd rather have poutine or the canned spam,
David
right?
loves poutine.
So I do love poutine. So yeah, anybody wants to ship me some, I guess. I don't know. I don't think that's probably a good idea though. Anyways, like I said, we're trying to make this fun, but what does CAN spam actually stand for? I know it regulates commercial email marketing, and I will go through what goes into that, but I'm not actually sure what it stands for. I don't think we have that. So
I did not put that in the show notes.
Yeah.
But,
So do your own research on what the acronym goes into. You just need to know what you have to do to be compliant. And it's actually pretty straightforward. Like, the whole purpose of a lot of this, not to be misleading with what we do when it comes to email in particular with this, right? So we don't want to use misleading subject lines or sender names, right? And we've seen, you've probably experienced this where this has come through and the headline is talking about something completely different than actually is in the email. Like the subject is attention grabbing, hooky, spammy, and all of a sudden the email's something completely different there, or the sender name, they're making it look like it's coming from someone or something like that, but it's not actually coming from them, right? Actually, I think a great example of that if you do anything on Facebook, you get a bajillion emails from, is where they're pretending to be Facebook and that your account isn't compliant.
It's very malicious.
Yes, exactly. And they're pretending to be Facebook to fish and end up getting your information and stuff from you there, right? So if you do anything with Facebook, you've probably seen something like that and hopefully you haven't clicked on it, right? So no misleading subject lines or sender names. Most people aren't doing that anyways, but yeah, be careful with what you put as a subject line, that it couldn't be labeled as misleading, right? And I want to identify your email as an ad. So I just want to be transparent that if I'm emailing them something about insurance, then I'm mentioning that in the email, right? I am not like, oh, this is a gift card and you can reach out and get this gift card and stuff. Yeah. They reach out and all of a sudden, yeah, we want to talk to you about your insurance, quote your insurance, right?
Win a free trip to the Bahamas or...
No, not saying that you can't bring the two together, but it has to be very clear and transparent, right? And there's some cool things you do. But once again, transparency is key when it comes down to this. When in doubt, make it very clear what it's about. And one thing that is unique to CAN spam is I have to actually have my business's physical address in that email, usually underneath the thing with your name and email and
your signature
line. Yeah, the signature line, whatever stuff. I was gonna figure it out eventually, right? So underneath that, generally need to have my actual business address, right, or physical address, or for that. So that is something that in a normal email back and forth you probably wouldn't have, or even just in your in those emails there. So yes, make sure you have your physical address for your business, and if you work virtually, then have even your home address then. And then I want to provide an easy opt-out. So you cannot send compliantly with CAN spam if you don't have a way for them to opt out. Now, could be a button, but it also could just be reply that, stop or opt out or whatever. And then you're actually removing them from your email list, whether it's done automatically or you're making sure to take, if they reply stop or unsubscribe, that you're taking them off your list.
Yeah. So pretty straightforward rules there, kind of very similar to what we've already talked about. And again, this is just allowing people to let you know how they want to be communicated with. And just really want to emphasize the point that David has already mentioned a couple of times here, but you do not want to keep marketing to people when they've opted out. There's literally no point. And it's one of the best ways, in my opinion, to ruin your reputation and to be very spammy if you're not respecting what people are communicating, as far as if they don't want to be on your list. We kind of laugh a little bit. It's yeah, get off the list. Or sometimes we'll even send emails unsubscribe from our list. You've been on our list for 5 years.
Yeah, do you even still want these? We're going to take you off unless you tell us yes. Because it does cost money and time to do that. And you want a healthy list, based on how many replies, engagement, opens your lists get. So it hurts your list if someone's not opening or engaging with it anyways. But I like to, once again, apply. So many people want to take digital and view it completely separately as in person or whatever, but the same concept. When's the last time you saw someone decide to walk out of a store without buying something, and the owner of that store chased them down the street trying to convince them for miles, or chasing their car, please buy something from my store, don't you want this, don't you want this? No, they're not chasing them down the street trying to beg them to buy that product. They left the door, right? So they're going to focus on people coming in the door to their place of business, right? So same thing here. Don't keep trying to hit people that are already telling you that, hey, I'm not interested, or I'm out for now, right? Much better. Once again, let's focus our time and attention to the people that we can help and have expressed interest. So
Absolutely. Some things that you can do if you want to take it to another level, and this is for text message and email, you can actually do like a double opt-in. If you really want to make sure, so in email, it's like, hey, you know, opted in to receive communication to us, reply back or hit this button if you want to continue receiving communication. Same for the text message. And for email specifically, when people actually reply back to your email, it sends kind of these triggers to like Google, Yahoo, that people want to receive your communication. So that's another important thing with email, getting your emails to land in the inbox, not going to the spam folder. You have a reputation score that's associated with your email address. And so the better that you're following these marketing practices, and actually, like to David's point, having a relationship with people and communication with people where they're responding back to your emails, these are good signals that it's sending to platforms like Google so that your emails are landing in the inbox and not going to spam. So the better that you follow these practices, not only is it helpful for you in avoiding fines and all of the real negative stuff that we've talked about, but it's just good practice and good marketing.
yeah, and the thing with double opt-ins too, you're making sure that that actual person was opting in and signing up for that as well. And this could be good if you're getting a lot of like questionable looking email addresses and things signing up that look like they could just be spam signing up or a bot or things like that, because it's very easy to go and just enter in an email to subscribe to something, right? If it's just a single opt-in. So, you know, that means, yeah, if someone's messing with you or your business, they go subscribe to a bunch of email lists and things you don't want to be on, right? And that's where double opt-in is, hey, we sent an email, let's confirm that you opted into this, right? And that way we make sure the actual person is one signing up and that they're actually interested in that as a part of that. So it ends up just meaning you have a higher quality list of people, and that they actually do have that interest in that as well. So especially if you start seeing emails come through is like, okay, this is just like either bots or people that aren't even interested in double opt-in can help with that.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So the whole reason that we're doing this particular segment right now,
yeah, what triggered
at the
this?
beginning,
why are we even talking about this?
2025 is that all last year, basically the whole industry was prepping for these changes that the FCC was putting into place. And so they had proposed this rule called the one-to-one consent rule, also making sure that what people were opting in for was topically relevant. Basically, what this meant was that as a business, people would have to opt in to receive communication specifically from your business, your brand, is what the one-to-one consent rule boiled down to. And all of this was supposed to go into effect a few days ago on January 27th. But it was kind of a little bit of like a last
ditch effort, which a lot of people view as heroes for saving this. In reality, I think it's more just postponed, and we'll probably see it down the line. But yeah, it was very last second.
Yes, that the one-to-one consent rule did not actually go into effect on January 27th. So what this means is the whole reason for the one-to-one consent rule was really built for like comparison sites, lead generators, where people would put in their information once, and then that information would be, sold to either multiple agencies or people to work the same opt-in. And so they called it the lead generator loophole, essentially, so that, it's profitable for lead companies. Yep. You get one opt-in and you're selling that information multiple times to multiple agencies. Well, it didn't go through. So basically what that means is that we're not probably going to see the big shifts that we thought that we were going to see in lead cost rising. That was one of our big predictions with the FCC regulation happening, was that it was just going to be more expensive for lead vendors to generate leads.
Maybe not to the extent that we were expecting, but to be fair, a lot of vendors have had costs go up on the lead side, and that just happens anyways. But, we have heard from agents, oh, my vendor 40-50% increase, and that was before this went into effect, right? So I do predict lead costs will still go up, but maybe not as drastically as we were expecting.
Well, what's interesting about this, because it was so last minute, is that a lot of the vendors, they were responding to this and they were preparing for this. So that's definitely why lead costs already, people were starting to experience that. Another interesting thing that's come out of this is that the telephone carriers are getting way more strict on the mass texting. So something, if you haven't experienced this already, then you will. I know we have experienced this on our side, is that carriers are being way more strict on the text messages that they're allowing to go through. The other thing that has happened as well is that you have to be a registered business in order to get a registered business number that you can register with the telephone carriers for mass texting. What this means now is that as a sole proprietor, which a lot of agents that get started in the business, they will start out as a sole proprietor, meaning they'll file taxes with their social security number, not an EIN number. You have to be a registered business with an EIN now to get a business number to get registered with the carriers. So even though this rule has not gone into effect, we are actually seeing a lot of shifts and changes. And I was actually on a couple of weeks ago talking to our vendor who does our mass texting. And she looked at our text, because we had a batch of text that actually didn't go through. And she was like, "You're doing everything right. Everything is compliant here." But it is getting more difficult to get text through. And it's now like a base requirement for some of these things that it used to just be simple to get a number and start blasting people on text message. Not the case anymore.
Well, and to your point, how many agents, especially newer agents, actually have an EIN and a registered business? A lot of them, the vast majority are sole proprietors and operating off of their social security number on that. And so that means, especially the agents that are probably most susceptible to not knowing compliance or how to put things in place, they're not able to have the EIN and get approved for that, the texting on that side, right? And so, it's something to keep in mind. That was something I actually just learned. I know you handle a lot of the texting, so I didn't know that you had to have an EIN number for that now. So that's super interesting.
Yep. It's just interesting, some of the things that have been set into motion due to the FCC proposal, even though it didn't go through. So one thing I also really want to point out about this is that everything that we've talked about, the TCPA opt-in, the DNC, as well as CAN-SPAM, these are rules and regulations that have been around for a while, and they're not new. We're talking about this now because of the FCC proposal with the one-to-one consent. But these are not new changes that we're talking about. These are things that have been in effect and things that you definitely want to take a look at your leads if you're not already, and making sure that you have that proper opt-in. So let's talk about ways to make sure that you are generating leads compliantly. Having that opt-in is the best way to cover your butt with this. Also, when you take your lead generation into your own hands, it gives you a lot more control too, instead of relying on vendors. So you have the power to really make sure that opt-in language is correct. And then we love organic marketing when it comes to social media and referrals, because it is inbound. People are reaching out to you. You're not needing to do as much of the automated lead working systems because it is people reaching out to you typically through a direct message, or it's a warm referral that's coming through a referral partner, and you're jumping on the phone with them, having a conversation with them. One thing that is also important that I didn't mention earlier on is people sometimes ask, well, what about my customers? Do I need this consent for my customers? You have 18 months after somebody does business with you to, to continue reaching out to them. So if you have somebody that's renewing a policy with you every year, that resets every time that they do business with you. So the rules are a little bit different with somebody that is a client that's already doing business with you.
Makes sense. So yeah, I want to build my own compliant lead system. A lot of ways you can do that. We love leveraging social media, like we said, for having people reach out to us and, inquire, hey, I'd love if you could send me a message about that. Hey, let's hop on a call, or strategic referral partners. Hey, Susie said you're amazing. Would love to talk to you. See how you can help me. When they're coming directly to us, a lot of this, they're already given that express permission, which is why I like it. And the intent is really high as a part of it too. So if we're focusing on, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and next door, I want to attract leads that we want to work with, right? Because we also get a lot more targeted with who we want to work with and who we're attracting and repelling those that wouldn't be fits, right? So
absolutely. So just to kind of sum up here, some things that you want to make sure that you avoid when you're thinking about this is that you do not want to work with lead vendors that cannot provide that proof of opt-in. That's first. You also just want to avoid cold calling people in general, I would say. But if you are doing cold calling, that you're really making sure that you're paying attention to who's registered on the DNC and keeping in mind that it's not just federal now, that there are certain states that have their own DNC. And then you want to make sure that you keep your own internal DNC for your business. So if people are opting out from communication, you're making sure that you're removing them from the list. And you also want to make sure that you're not being misleading in your marketing tactics. And at the end of the day, respect what people are asking you to do as far as how they want to be communicated with, and respecting their wishes if they do want to be removed from your list.
Perfect. Guys, hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully this was really good information. So like key takeaways on insurance agents need to stay compliant on their lead generation. And this is where ultimately at the end of the day, your business is your responsibility. And so this is where